Welcome back to another Warhammer 40k video brought to you by One Mind Syndicate. I am your host, Gershwin, and today we're going to be talking about the Tau Fire Warrior by the name Uso. He was captured by the Dark Eldar and forced to fight in the arenas of Kamara. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40k content every single day. Now, this is a narrative story that I made up for a model that I kitbashed for Kitbash Ember or Kitbash November. On Instagram, there is a whole campaign where every 3 days you kitbash a Warhammer 40k model, and I've decided to take it a little step further and create my own lore and my own video based on that kitbashed model. So more information on that towards the end of the video, but for right now, let's get into the story of Uso, the Tau Fire Warrior. Shaz La Borkan Uso was born on the Tau Sep world of Borkan, a rich mining planet known as the center of learning and academia. Coming from such a respectable background, Uso's career as a fire warrior was destined to be successful. Eager to prove himself and to serve the greater good, Uso volunteered to act as security for a research expedition near the Damocles Gulf. The expedition hoped to investigate a spatial anomaly recorded above the barren world of Falsea. Uso hoped to build rapport with the Fire Warrior commander leading the Fire Warrior security team. His wishes were granted when a small force of orc pirates, led by the greenskin freebooter captain, Thiefbasher, raided the orbital space station. Uso showed great composure during the raid. He was able to set up defensive perimeters and even managed to trick the orcs into attacking the lower chambers of the space station, keeping the crew out of harm's way. Eventually, the raiding orcs were repelled by the Fire Warrior team, but uncharacteristically, they fled without an attempt to counterattack their defenses. The commander ordered his soldiers to prepare for a larger assault by the orcs, still unable to believe that the greenskins simply gave up. An hour after the last orc assault boat disappeared from the radar, the space station experienced a complete power shutdown. When the reserve power generator activated, the recording equipment began to detect the spatial anomalies that the expedition was looking for. The excitement of the research team came to a sudden halt when multiple intruders were detected on board the ship. Uso and 4 other fire warriors were tasked to guard the crew that had barricaded itself inside the medical bay. The rest of the fire warrior team hunkered down in the same makeshift barricades that gave them cover during the orc assault. Minutes passed by, and the little flashing lights that represented the intruders made their way toward the commander and his fire warrior team. No shots were fired. To the horror of Uso, the flashing lights that denoted his comrades were dragged across the screen until they simply disappeared. Scarier yet, the intruders moved toward their position. Setting the radar down and focusing on the darkness of the space station corridors, Uso waited with fear of what was to creep out of the shadows. A maniacal laugh was heard, and suddenly, plasma rounds started lighting up the corridor as all 5 fire warriors shot blindly down the hall. Darkness once again, as all 5 warriors stopped to reload their weapon. Out of the corner of one of their eyes, a dark shadow moved from behind, and before he could gasp, a barbed blade sliced through the Tau's eye-shaped slit. Brain matter splattered across the room as the blade was withdrawn with an elegant twist. Uso simply remembered turning around and attempting to shoot the tall and sleek figure, but being disarmed by an even larger assailant that rushed from the darkness of the space station. His next recollection is being dragged onto a twisted ship along with crying and terrified crew. No amount of words can describe the torture he endured after. Constant flailing and deprivation of all basic needs was the least atrocious actions Uso went through. After a week or so of this pain, Uso believed his misery over when one of his captors brought him into a dark and damp chamber, along with other members of the research team. In his mind, this was some sort of gas chamber that would finally end his misery. As the final Tau was thrown into the giant metal box, the door was locked, and a hydraulic noise began humming. The sensation of movement, followed by the sound of bloodthirsty screams, pushed Uso to stand up. A flash of light blinded the scared fire warrior as the roof of the chamber was pulled off and the walls fell over. Surrounded by thousands of screaming and chanting pale humanoids that stood above them on what seemed to be hovering bleachers, Uso stood in shock. He could finally see his companions, many of which were earth and air casts who could barely stand up. Their physiology made them less resistant to the extreme torture they all had endured. Off to one corner, a hidden room on the ground pulled open, and a similar giant metal box appeared. When those walls fell, Uso nearly fainted. A roaring great Narlock stood dazed just 15 feet away. It was then that Uso realized what this was, as the crowd cheered at the appearance of the massive beast. This was some sort of gladiatorial arena, and the great Narlock was about to attack Uso and his comrades. Charging forward, the great beast did not hesitate to bite down on the head of the first Tau he could get a hold of. And not even finishing his gulp, the giant Narlock managed to trap a crawling aircast Tau underneath his massive feet. With a crunch, the aircast Tau's bones shattered under the massive weight of the creature. One by one, the monster continued killing the Tau. Trapped inside the arena, Uso felt more like a sacrifice rather than a challenger to the beast. When he was the last one left, the enormous creature simply walked towards the terrified Firecast Tau and bit down across his arm and chest, raising him up and thrashing him like a rag doll. Laying on the floor in a pool of blood, the great Narlock took a massive chomp, and Uso's left arm was sliced off straight from the shoulder socket. Before taking another bite, the beast roared as if to assert his dominance over the arena that was scattered with Tau dismembered bodies. At the same time, out of another hidden doorway, 4 scantily clad women dashed out, and in a brutal yet harmonious manner began slicing away at the beast. The massive crowd cheered with bloodlust as the once menacing creature cowered from the witch's daring attacks. In less time than it took the great Narlock to devour the Tau, the witches had surgically sliced the beast's leg tendons and left him a motionless, bleeding mess. Uso survived the ordeal, but his arms did not. Replaced with cybernetic arms, he finally managed to show he was worthy of fighting in the witch called Serena, when he killed 2 Vespid stingwings in an artificially constructed scene meant to represent the corridors of a space station. This victory cut down his torture, and he was able to live amongst the other slave warriors of the witch cult stable. Unfortunately, as one of the only Tau amongst the other warrior races of the stable, Uso was much smaller, and so he would often get pushed around. His daily meal rations were constantly being snatched away by a group of human slaves. Led by a cruel former commissar, the clan of former Imperial Guardsmen continued to obey his xenophobic actions. Any new non-human warrior that entered the stable would be beat down almost to the point of death. That is until Uso had enough, and on the 8th day of entering the stable, he insulted the commissar and allowed him to get close enough to spit in his face. But before the saliva could even leave his mouth, a makeshift shank was perfectly thrusted through the commissar's nose and straight into his brain. As the body hit the ground, Uso looked at the clan and said, "Remember, I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me." In shock, the Imperial Guardsmen watched as Uso slowly sliced through the commissar's neck until his head was completely detached from his body. With the human filth taken care of, Uso managed to scrap together his very own Corvesa, or Tau drone. Although he could not get it to hover, he was able to attach a steel rod that he would stab into the arena floor, and with that, the drone would provide range fire as well as melee support with a mechanical arm he was able to add. But his favorite modification, and a fixture that would get the arena crowd cheering every time they saw him, was the severed head of the Imperial Commissar that dangled on his drone. And that was the story of Uso, the Fire Warrior. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to share it with your friends, especially if they're participating in Kitbashember or Kitbash November. It's a lot of fun. So for all those that don't know, this is a campaign going on Instagram where every 3 days we build, or you kitbash a new model based on like the arenas of Kamara. So I'm taking it a little step further, and I'm creating a lore video for each individual Kitbash model that I create. Each 3 days you have like something special. So for instance, this one was a trooper. I didn't want to do the traditional guardsman that I felt most people would do. So I decided to kitbash some Tau stuff and created this awesome fire warrior. Now I want to get into just the pieces that I used to build them, so let's do that. So I started off with Pathfinder legs. This is coming from the Pathfinder box. The reason I chose the Tau legs is because of the hooves. I figured that the hooved feet are synonymous with Tau, and they'll be really fun to paint, and they were. You don't really get to paint hooves that often in Warhammer 40k. Now, the torso comes from the Gene Stealer Cult Neophyte box set. That box set, these torsos from that box set are probably some of the best pieces to use because they blend so well with pretty much any other leg set because of the little grenades on the side. They hang from the side, which makes it look like the piece just flows together. I attached a Tau head. The Tau head does not have a helmet because I wanted to really play around with the blues and the grays that come with Tau skin. And later on you'll see that I think I did a pretty good job. It was difficult, but I got it. Then I dug through some of my Skitarii bits and I pulled out the arms from probably the captain or commander, I forget what it's called, of the Skitarii Vanguard. So you have a carbine pistol, and then in the other hand, I believe normally they would be holding some type of Voxcaster or some type of like there's something else that's supposed to attach to the top of that arm. The reason that I use that arm is because I wanted to attach a drone. Now the drone, as you see, is attached to a toothpick. I saw some cool concept art on Instagram of like the soldier carrying a drone that was attached to like a staff, and I wanted to do that. Now I played around with the drone. I attached a little mechanical arm that's supposed to act as a melee weapon. I attached the skull of the commissar, and it came out pretty well. The actual mechanical hand comes from the Onager Doomcrawler set. I tested a base that I have. I casted some bases from back when I was working with the Imperial Guard models. So I just wanted to see how it would fit on one of those bases. I kind of have to play around with it just because the base seems kind of small. Now, the one thing that I did wrong is I attached the hand to the toothpick, and I didn't like the way that it looked, which is why you see I corrected that mistake by attaching I used green stuff to create like some type of wire that comes from the drone and attaches to the gun of the drone, so it all flows together, but at the same time it covers up my mistake of just doing a bad job of connecting the toothpick to the arm of the model. I should have taken more time and been more patient. I think I could have gotten a better seamless connection between the toothpick and the actual arm, but it's only 3 days, so I kind of powered through it I think in one night, and I really wanted to get it done, so I figured if I just attach or I add some green stuff and make it and hide my mistake, I can get away with it, and I think I did. It looks okay there, but then after I paint the entire thing, I think it looks a little better. And I'm just showing off the actual how it stands. After painting it, I really love the way that it looks. I like the colors that I chose. I chose the traditional like tan Tau color. The pants and the other clothes are brown, and I mixed 2 different browns, and I added a bunch of washes. I really wanted to go with like a certain color scheme that's reminiscent of like the Blanchitsu. The thing that I struggled with is the actual wire. I think it's a little too red. I wanted to bring more emphasis to the blood on the commissar's head on the back, so maybe later on I might go back and add some washes to that wire just to bring that red down a little bit. But one thing that I really struggled with was that whenever I look at Blanchitsu style miniatures, they have texture, and it looks really it just looks well on an actual model. So I struggled with that. I couldn't get the model to have that much texture. The blue skin of the Tau I do like. I added some. It was blue, a blue wash, and then some gray. And there you have the entire completed model. I think I really like it. I like how it came out. The base was simple. It's just sand, corkscrew, and I think some bullets from one of the Ludas or the Flash Kit set. This model was a lot of fun to make, and I hope you guys enjoyed the lore. If you are participating in Kitbash November, definitely comment with your username on Instagram so we can check out your work and other people can check out your work. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. If you like what we do and you want to support us, jump on over to Patreon. A simple $1 a month helps us create more videos for you guys. Videos like this, because these are not the traditional 40k lore videos. They require a little bit more work, but it's because of our patrons that we are able to do that. So if you can't do that, simply by liking, commenting, and sharing, it helps out the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.